Hello, so in this video we're going to be looking at the New Deal. Okay, to get started with, we need to think about the problems that were being faced by America at this time. So, by 1932, one of the major problems was unemployment, so people not having a job. Now, by 1933, there was 14 million people in America, which is 25% of the total workforce, were unemployed. There was also a huge lack of confidence in America. Now, this has two impacts. People weren't confident with the banks, so they didn't want to put their money in the bank, and therefore the banks weren't investing in business. Also, people weren't confident enough to go out and spend their money, which affects the cycle of prosperity, which we've learned about before. So businesses aren't making more money and then spending their money, and so on and so on. And a third problem we're going to identify is agriculture, so farming. And the big problem here was the Dust Bowl, okay, caused by droughts, overproduction and overfarming. And 20 million hectares of land at this time was part of this Dust Bowl, so it wasn't usable really for the farmers. Now, when we're thinking about the solution comes along in the form of Franklin Delano Roosevelt in 1932. So he said to the American people that he was going to offer them a New Deal. And what this means is he's going to offer them something different, a change from those Republican policies of laissez-faire, this idea of leave it alone, let businesses sort themselves out. So this is a big change. The government's now going to get involved and try and sort out the problems caused by the Great Depression. Now, there was actually two New Deals. So we'll start off with the first New Deal and some of the things that were brought in at this time. Now, first of all, we look at the fireside chats. Now, this was where Roosevelt would sit and talk through the radio to the nation every Sunday about what he was doing to try and improve confidence. And 60 million people listened to this every week. Now, linked to that and linked to confidence was the banking system. So people weren't confident in the banking system because they weren't confident their money would be safe. So what Roosevelt did is he shuts down all the banks and only allows those to reopen that he is happier, sufficiently well resourced to be able to continue lending and borrowing money. Now, another thing Roosevelt does, he sets up what are called alphabet agencies. Now, they're called alphabet agencies because of the letters that make up their names. I'm going to look at just a few examples now. So we had things like the TVA, which is a Tennessee Valley Authority, which produced things like dams and helped to provide electricity to rural areas. We also have the AAA, which was focused on agriculture, and it wanted to reduce production in order to increase prices and therefore give farmers a better wage. We had things like the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps, who gave young men a job working in the countryside and things like national parks, so they were learning skills but also able to send some money back to their families. And finally, we have things like the PWA, the Public Works Administration, which constructed things like schools, hospitals, and basically provided people with jobs, but also the country with infrastructure for the future. Now, by the time of the second New Deal, the big problem was still unemployment. So the unemployment was still the major problem. So other alphabet agencies were set up at this time, such as the WPA, which again was involved in building schools and building big infrastructure projects in order to give people jobs. Now, that's an overview of the New Deal itself, but there were quite a lot of critics of the New Deal. So on the right here, we've got a man called Huey Long. Now, Huey Long was the governor of Louisiana, and he felt that the New Deal didn't go far enough. It didn't help people enough, and he recommended there was more taxation needed and a more balancing of the economy. Now, on the left as well, one of the major critics of the New Deal were the Republicans. Okay, so the other political party to the Democrats, and they were saying that not only was too much money being spent, the New Deal was very expensive, but also too much power was being given to the president, taken away from Congress and taken away from the individual states within America. So the New Deal was not without its critics. Now, if we're thinking about was the New Deal a success or a failure, well, there's some elements where it really did work. It increased confidence in things like the banking sector. It increased people's confidence to spend money and confidence in the government. It gave people jobs, and it provided a lot of infrastructure that Americans would use in the future, like schools, hospitals, and dams. However, a lot of people consider it a bit of a failure. There was another recession and an economic downturn in 1937. Unemployment was not fully sorted until the Second World War. The jobs that the New Deal gave were only quite temporary, and as the Republicans pointed out, the New Deal was extremely expensive. Okay, so that's a really quick overview of the New Deal. Thank you.